Well, hello class, and welcome back. This is where we are so far on our still life final. We drew out these 5 objects right there. We located them on our picture area right there, and then we developed them using basic shapes that we learned how to do from before, and we completed them up to this point with just a light sketch of their outline, and I firmed up the line so we can see a little bit more what they're going to look like when we go ahead and shade them in. In working with individual objects, a quick reminder, this was a sketch that we did and we could see through it right there. It was our squeeze bottle for our white paint, and you can see how we shaded it in. That's what we're going to have to do right now. We're going to have to take our sketch and firm it up so that it becomes a physical statement that has some solidity to it. Nice cast shadows is going to look really fine. So once again, sketch like we did before, and finally finishing it off. And the last one right here really quick, just because you can refer this back to when we were drawing real objects and doing studies. So this is how we got a study, and we firmed it up right there. So now you can see we're right here, just about ready to move on and finish this up. But I also wanted to remind us how we got here. I wanted to talk a little bit about still life objects in general right there, and where that history comes from. We mentioned in our first video right here, some of the items right here, like this one here by Wilhelm Kauf. And this is a Baroque artist who's doing a still life during the Baroque time right there. And you can see the items that are in here, like ours, are relative to his time. And some of them are really aggressive. Some of them will be really challenging to draw. And he's got food items in here. It was kind of like reminding us about the transition of life right there. That things change and that we move on right there. So he has food items in here, and he's got some real hard items like we have right there. And another Baroque image right there by Peter Klaus, where he introduces a human skull. Once again, our own mortality is reflected in this painting right here. Plus, still life objects again. Moving on, we have, excuse me if I'm in your way right there. Let me get back up. Moving on, we got Paul Cézanne, kind of an early cubist right there. Actually, he's a post-impressionist, but he kind of like starts to set the site for flattening out images and breaking them when he's doing these round spherical fruit right there. They've been flattened out into sides, but he's still dealing with the theme of still life items. Same thing right here in this totally cubistic thing by Georges Braque, a friend of Pablo Picasso, where you can see the lemons are totally flattened out right now. So the three-dimensional qualities are being reduced, but there's still the concept behind using food items and the idea that things can move along and reflect life are still a subject matter that's popular in the still life objects right there. Finally, this by Ralph Goings, a photorealist, kind of following the pop art tradition right there, a little bit after that right there, because he's in a photorealistic style now, moving on. But he uses the photograph right there to explore in this particular image right here of a cafe right there, where he's looking at objects much like ours right here, and he's contemplating a kind of a still life concept. And in this one particularly, oh, we've even got a donut right there by Ralph Goings right there. Again, a food item right there. So, and partly open creamery stuff and stuff. So it really has sugar in the background. So it has that feeling right there that we've seen in traditional still lifes right there. Objects arranged, overlapping, and a point of meditation and reflection about what life is about right there. So we've got that going almost right here for us, but I'm going to add a little more touch to it. As I promised, something was kind of missing. This is kind of flat. It barely makes a cylinder form. But if I throw this piece of bread in there, and we have a food object right there. You don't have to put that in your artwork, but I just wanted to do an homage to Ralph Goings' donut right there. And I did want to talk a little bit about an object that has a little bit more than just this round shape. This is almost a box-like shape, a real flat box. So I'm going to deal with it as a box-like shape. So now I can complete my dish and make it far more complex, kind of like in keeping with the others. Anyway, so there he is. Here we are. And I'm going to even add some coffee here to my cup. Here we go. So now we've got a still life ready to finish, and a meal perhaps later on. I have my paper right here, which is important. Remember we talked about this piece of paper to rest your hand on, so that while you're moving your hand around, you're not dragging it across your drawing, not only smearing it, but adding oil and natural oil from our hand into the paper, causing the paper to become really, really nasty, especially if you want to erase anything. The oil and the eraser does not mix well. So we're going to keep it all safe by using this. Now we're ready to go ahead and finish up the drawing with some serious shading. So I'm not going to do it all in front of us, but I'm going to start it a little bit right here because you need time to shade your own. I want to talk about this area right here, which is black. Got a couple of highlights right there. So when I shade this in, the pot, I'll go ahead and I'll press down and I'll build it up. I'm not going to go ahead and straight on press down hard at the beginning. I'm going to start to pick it up, build it up, just like we did with our last object. So I'm going to reflect, I'm going to look at all this area right here. I'm going to see where the dark areas are, like in here. And I work my way through it, probably starting in the back here, because as I move to the front, I won't be dragging my hand through it. It's just maybe just a little strategy right there. So I'll work my way back here, do the chrome handle. Chrome is something reflects a lot, so it's going to have interesting highlights. We didn't talk a lot about texture, but if you follow the image and you look closely at it, you'll see all that you need to shade in just by making the lines. You already have, like a coloring book, you already have the template already worked out. So right now, all we have to do is slowly introduce the values into the areas, watching out for highlights, like there's a highlight right there, and a highlight along the top area here, I can see that. So when I shade up to that spot, I'll allow some thickness right there, bring it down like this. You can see what's happening already. And when it goes underneath things, I'll go ahead and I'll darken it down, like we did with our 10-shape design, where we learned how to overlap shapes like this and the cast shadow of things underneath. So we're catching all of that, catching it over here on this, deepening the value there, and then lightening it up. It's got a glare spot back here I can see, so I'll probably bring it right up to there. Already you can see where we're going on this. If I continue on this, I'll get that whole pot done. If I look over here at my letters, I kind of lightly marked off the letters. Once again, like before, it's good to go ahead and make some guidelines. So when you're putting in the letters, like I said, it's Watkins. I was able to put the W right there in my sketch, and I was able to work out the letters by using the guidelines. So it looks relatively, it's lettering and precision designs that are on label right there can be difficult. But if we just indicate some of the keywords, then that'll be fine right there. So I'm going to just put definitely the name Watkins. Now lighten it lightly and put it on there. There's the Watkins. It's got a circular shape right here with some stuff in there. It's got baking vanilla, which I'll write in later on. And it's got reflections in it. Now that's key right there, because I was looking at the reflections in the chrome, and now we've got reflection in the glass. We're going to see reflections in this object right here. Just about everything highlights and has reflections in it. So as you begin to shade things in, you want to make sure that you keep your, once again, you want to keep it clean, but work your areas in light area first, and then you can build up your value as you get confident that that's what's supposed to be there. It's a really a dog to try to go ahead and erase lines that you made that are too dark prematurely. So you definitely want to. So I'm doing that. I'll be doing the highlight. I'll be bringing it down here, building it darker up under here, totally down here. I see some shadow right there. I'll handle the handle on that. It's kind of a box shape. It's got the top side, so it became a little bit more complex than I thought initially, which is good. It gets a little bit darker there. So use your object to give you the answers. It's like a cheat sheet. It's like me giving you a chance to take and cheat on a test, because you're copying the information. You don't have to invent it right there. We did a lot of work just to get up to this stage, but feel free to go ahead and see what you see, cast shadow. Feel free to just go ahead and throw it down as you see it, underneath here. Make sure as you're watching it, don't get cavalier and not observe all the subtleties right there. Because some areas like here gets darker than even the cast shadow right along here. So I'm looking at that. Of course, I'm responsible for that because this is my drawing. But you'll be looking at that in your own drawing. This whole side is dark and the top is bright. So I'm making the side dark down here. And down in here. And by doing that, it gives you a sense this light right here is shining on it right there. When we get all done, we're practically done. I mean, in another couple of hours. But I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to throw on my, my box-like shape. And I can see it. I'm going to make it into a box. Once again, I'm not intimidated. I'm not saying, whoa, I can't draw bread. Bread is not what I draw. Well, I'm not drawing bread. I'm drawing a box-like shape right there. So that's what I'm going to do first. In fact, I'm going to have to bring it down a little bit further here. So this won't be my line I'm going to be dealing with. And yeah, it bends in and curves around. But like I said before, and like we learned before, draw our shapes out first of all as box forms, or cylinders, or cones, or spheres. The box has got a leading corner right here. You're probably thinking I should have started at the bottom, but that was practically the bottom because it's so flat. Here we go. So here we go. We're working right there. There. You can see here's my diagonal sides coming down to a vanishing point that goes down to the center of the earth. This is the top of the box right here. I curved this already. I mean, I could have made a straight line and then curved it, but I'm kind of like being smart about this. I can see that happening. It dips in right here, so I can modify the curve shape on the side, bring it back out, a little dent in here, and back down here. So now we're modifying, curving the corners, we're modifying our box form to go ahead and produce our familiar shape that we would see in toast. Add the rest of the detail right there. The other things besides the shading is the cast shadows. I started to indicate a cast shadow right here. So as soon as I shade in this object right here, anything I see dark, I'll shade in dark. I'll try to catch all of the light and dark areas I see. But one of the areas that's interesting is the cast shadow on the ground. Once again, like we did before with cast shadows on the ground, I like to lay the shadow out so it lays on the ground. So I'll probably use a horizontal stroke like this to begin with. I just do it because, not that it doesn't lead your eye back into space, but it has a sense of staying on the ground right there. It reinforces the flatness of my shape. So sometimes I'll do that. And then later on I'll change my pencil direction and soften it out because I may want to beef up the shadow if it gets close to objects. And like I said before, in reflections and things, right here I notice it gets really dark, some reflection on the back from my angle. So I would pick the unusual dark reflections, probably a reflection of this over here, and I would darken it in, which makes it look really glassy. And then I'll watch for highlights, so I'll shade this down dark right here. It seems to get really dark right through here, along this line area reflecting some light. So I'll duplicate that. And anyway, when we get down right at the very bottom right here, we'll also have a cast shadow back here, which you may have, yeah, you probably catch it on your side right there. I'm going to turn this around so you can see what I've got drawn right there. But in any event, there we go. And like I said, I can continue on, but I don't want to, this used to be, I know you won't believe it, but it used to be 4 more sections of this, but I'm going to go ahead and cut it down to this section right there, because that's what we've got going so far. You can see it starts to match, and this is what we're going to have when we get done. And you can see this is with all the shading, including the shading on the table. So now I've even shown the brightness of the mat, and I made the mat part of the still life. It is part of the still life. It kind of like helps me organize, and it shows me where the shapes occupy space. So I decided to keep that white too, and I made the shadow of the object get darker when it got on the table. And there was I didn't put the still life, the basic shapes back there. I guess I could have thrown those on too, but this is what you're required to do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 objects. All of them have at least 2 or more of the basic forms in them, and you're going to go ahead and shade it in so it looks like it's the object's right there. Try to capture as much as you can, and then you've completed the assignment. I've also signed at the very bottom right there. If you could sign your still life somewhere right there. This is a portfolio art piece, and I really want you to feel strong about it right there. I want you to feel like, yes, today we are artists. Okay? Well, look, I wish you luck. Give me a call, and if you have any questions. And thank you very much. Okay, catch you later.